Okay, good evening. Good evening. There, is this on? Well, oh, thank you. All right, this is the regular board meeting of the McDowell County Board of Education. And this is Monday, October the 9th, and it's 6 p.m., and the meeting will now come to order. Before we approve our agenda this evening, I just need to make a general announcement to the public and to the staff folks and their board members. The November meeting will be held the first Monday of the month instead of the second, which is our usual meeting date. That will be November the 6th, and the reason we're having it a week early is because on the second Monday of the month, most of the board will be at the North Carolina School Boards Association annual meeting, which also includes 2 days of intensive training. And as board members, we are required to fulfill a number of hours each year for training, and this is a really good opportunity for board members to do that. So next month's meeting will be the first Monday of the month, which will be November the 6th. Same location, same time. So, with that said, is there a motion to approve this evening's agenda? Mr. Shuford makes the motion, and Mr. Frank makes the second. Is there any discussion? If not, then all in favor, and the motion carries. All right. And it has become our custom that as we begin our time together here, that we take a moment or two to sit in silence and reflect upon the day behind us and work ahead of us. So if you would please savor a moment. Thank you all. I'll do it. Before we present the colors this evening, Mr. Abernathy, the NEBO representative, is a little under the weather and is going to participate electronically. I don't know that we'll be able to actually see him on the screen, but he will be able to hear and to participate in the discussion. So I needed to announce that as well. So at this time, Captain, if you would introduce your team and have them provide the colors.
First rifle is Mr. Patton, and Mr. Revis, Mr. Ammons, commanding the color guard, and Mr. Wakehouse, special center.
Thank you.
Color guard. Oh, hey. Okay. Hey. Alex. Hey. Hey. Oh, hey. Hodge. Kelly. Guard. Halt. Right. Ace. Reset. Alex. Please join me in pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Hey. Colors. Hey. Cut. Left.
Colors. Left. Ace. Oh. Hey. Heart.
Captain Ross, thank you for your dedication to our cadets. Thank you.
Captain Ross. Yes, sir. I understand you had a couple student or cadets that were still competing today.
No, they competed Sunday. They came back. We came back late Sunday night.
How did we do?
Overall, this is a competition at the called the Montgomery Bell Academy, so the Highfalutin Academy. Nationally, they tracked all the best shooters in the East Coast of the United States. And Saturday, we finished third overall behind two teams that were third and fourth in the nation last year. Wow. So we were doing well. And then yesterday, finished second, third, and fourth individually in the competition on Sunday. So very well.
Very, very
So
good.
that's cool record.
All right. Yes. Okay. Well, we'll continue on with the meeting then, and our next item are remarks from our superintendent, Dr. Gritz. So, sir.
Chairman English and Mumal, members of the board. Appreciate y'all tonight. I've got some exciting news to share with you. I'm going to start off my remarks with October marks the month of celebrations. So this October and every October is Principals Appreciation. So we're in full swing, and I want to take this opportunity to recognize our principals, and we have several of them with us tonight, so thank you. Dedication and commitment to their students and the success of their schools. In only a few short months, I've seen the passion and commitment from our principals. At the end of September, just a few weeks ago, our leadership team hosted our first principal coaching session. And I was blown away as our principals shared the many ways they have gone over and above in their work. I'm honored to work with such a group of dedicated leaders, and I believe we have the team to move the needle this year. Please join me, board, in celebrating our principals this month. Yeah. Keeping with the celebrations, and I see Miss Bennett back there, I want to thank the Rotary Club for their generous donations to our high school. They gave us a $15,000 donation last week to assist our students with college tours and application fees. Going to college comes at a cost, and this generous donation will tremendously help our students in need, who otherwise may not have had the opportunity to visit universities. Now, thanks to this generous donation, they have that chance. Last week, we also celebrated something really special here in the county. The class of 1973, from what I'm understanding, was the first graduating class that actually attended the high school. So interestingly, the school was established in 1971 with students graduating from McDowell High School at one of the 6 community schools. So it was almost like UNC at Chapel Hill. So it might have been McDowell High School at Old Fort, for example. That's what I heard. So I also learned that the consolidation of the athletics program before 1973, meaning those years of 1971 and 1972, may have been the connection needed in the community to help with that transition. So just some really forward thinking during that time. Miss Bennett and her team worked many hours behind the scenes with Miss Talbert and Mr. Talbert to host a homecoming for the ages. The 1973 homecoming king and queen were there to present the 2023 crowns. We hear about stuff like this occurring, or maybe in a Hallmark movie, but this really happened. And thanks to the hard work and dedication for making this an event for the ages. The class of 1973 brought a unique energy to our school, and they were thrilled to be back and see the great work going on today. After a big win, the football team, maybe the class of '73, might have been the missing ingredient. I don't know. The Titans went on to a 44-0 victory against Inca, so it was just a really, really great weekend all around. They came back on Saturday and did tours of the school, our ROTC, toured them around the building. I know Miss Bennett, she's got to be tired even on Monday here. I know she's tired. It was a long weekend, but we appreciate you and what you guys did for that group. Last week was a very busy week. I had the privilege of attending the superintendent's executive leadership meeting in Greensboro. I certainly don't like to be out of the district, but working with a network of other districts is an integral part of the job to bring the very best to our students. October is a time when many of our staff are traveling to learn, and many of the learning team, they're at the AIM conference right now. You'll see them later tonight. They'll be on a presentation with us here. Although we are on the road, the responsibilities at home must be maintained. This week I will also travel to Raleigh to meet with the state superintendent, Truitt, and the other 115 superintendents across the state. I look forward to this meeting and again advocating for McDowell County Schools. Now, speaking of advocating, I'm excited to announce we finally have a budget, a state budget. The raises over the biennium on average were between 3.5 and 14.7%. A biennium, so that's over the next 2 years, depending on the employee's classification. Although we're grateful for the increases, our veteran teachers with the most experience did not receive the raises we thought they would. We will definitely share this with Superintendent Truitt as a concern we need her support with. Following the budget, we finalized our bus ridership count last week, and our ridership is down, meaning that we have fewer students are riding the buses this year. Due to this, we've identified some routes that can be combined to ensure that we balance our budgets, and we feel that we can remove at least 2 routes in the next few weeks, and we anticipate that 1 more will be removed over the next month. This will help with driver shortages and help us be more efficient and a more sound steward of our state allocation. In a few cases, some routes may gain extra time in the evenings or begin a little earlier in the morning, but we hope it will cut down on buses arriving late to school or those doubled routes in the afternoon. This is not a silver bullet, but I feel like it's a step in the right direction. And sadly, folks, last week we also experienced a tragedy in our community. Our schools reflect our community. In our strategic plan meeting last month, many of the community's areas of need were also evident in our plan as things that do indeed affect our students. Although poverty, mental health, the opioid crisis, and homelessness may appear as external issues, these are real issues that many of our students face daily. Last week's domestic violence tragedy directly impacted our community in a very public way. We are grateful for our law enforcement's quick response and emergency services caring for this family, providing medical treatment, and catching the suspect only a few hours after the tragedy. We will continue to keep them in our thoughts and prayers, as both the victims and those responding to violence are affected. To overcome such issues we uncovered as barriers in our strategic plan just last month, our schools need the community's support. Together, we can make a difference and positively impact our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Crick. Okay. Certainly has been a large week.
Yes, sir.
We'll move along then. Item 6 on the agenda this evening is a presentation from Dr. Kim Case from My Future NC. And Dr. Griff, while she's making her way to the podium and getting her presentation queued up, I'll let you just make a few introductory remarks.
Sure. Well, Dr. Case is no stranger to McDowell County. She's been doing this work here for a while. We were happy to have her come and do a presentation for us tonight. One of the goals is to bring a lot of boards together, and that's really what this is all about tonight. In the work that has been previously done, we've kind of done it in isolation between the community colleges and the school system. The county's been involved as well, but again in isolation. So the goal of tonight is to give our board some education on what this project is all about, as well as talk a little bit about a future resolution that we'd be asking for some support from this board, and to ultimately get to a January, somewhere in that neighborhood, meeting that would involve all of our boards. And we're excited about that work, and I don't want to steal her thunder and tell you exactly what it's about, so I'll let her take it away.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Chairman English, Superintendent Grant, members of the board. It's a privilege to be here again. This is not my first time in McDowell County. And in fact, the work for my future NC in McDowell County predates my position as Northwest Regional Impact Manager for our organization. Back in 2021, McDowell County entered into a local educational attainment collaborative. That was a partnership with businesses, the school system, the community college, and furthered the work of the McDowell Pipeline, which had pre-existed my future NC. But that initiative to bring together a collaborative effort to address our state attainment goal, and specifically to talk about what that looks like in McDowell County. So I have some updates, and that's what I've been doing with some of our essential partners, business, industry, community college, and K-12 systems, pre-K-12. I saw Head Start back there, pre-K 12 as well. So I'll go through this fairly quickly, and then I'll be glad to entertain questions and come back later at another date to add more information if you'd like. So My Future NC is a bipartisan, statewide nonprofit. We were formed out of a House Bill 664 in 2019 as the result of the My Future NC Commission, which looked at how are we doing to align education and the workforce. And there were focus groups, some of you may have participated in those across the state over several years with multiple cross-sector partners to determine what needed to be done. And one of those strategies was to adopt a state attainment goal. That goal is 2 million 25 to 44-year-olds with post-secondary degrees or credentials that lead to a family-sustaining wage by 2030. Now, there are many states, some states in the nation that already had an attainment goal. North Carolina did not until this bill was passed, and so we're really pleased that we have that goal. You'll notice it's 25 to 44-year-olds because that is the age where you would ideally have finished your education if you were in a 4-year pathway, and you would be entering the workforce as a young adult. And then those 25 to 44 years are those years when you have families typically and are really contributing to all of our economies. And that's very important for individual mental health and for our workforce and our economic development. So the K-12 sector, pre-K-12 sector, has a huge role to play in that, and that's why I'm here tonight. We have a cross-sector board of directors, and I'll just let you take a look at a few of those folks. We have sector heads, education sector heads from private, public, and community colleges. We have policymakers, philanthropists, business leaders across the state. The president of the Chambers Association is a member of our board. In addition, we have advisory boards of commissioners that represent 36 counties. There's 60 experts out there that help guide our policy. It truly is cross-sector, bipartisan work, and I'm very proud to be part of that because together we're able to accomplish so much. You may know lots of good news going on with our economy. North Carolina was voted by CNBC to be #1 in business for the 2nd year in a row. That doesn't happen very often. In fact, I'm not sure that it has ever happened. I need to look that up. But last year's performance, there were 29,000 new jobs and $19.3 billion in investments, and we are credited with the partnerships that exist across the state for making that happen. We also have this robust infrastructure, 58 community colleges, 36 private institutions, 16 public institutions. So we have a beautiful, wonderful education system in place to do the work that we need to do. When you look at our jobs of the future, if you'll notice, it's a little bit hard to see, but those two lower bars, those are some college, no degree, and then high school diploma. So the jobs of the future are not going to be led with just that amount of education. If you go to that next column, it's post-secondary non-degree awards and higher are the predictions for the jobs of our future. So for our students, it is critical that we help them become educated and move toward that path of economic prosperity, which is good for all. One thing I want to make clear is that credentials may mean a short-term degree. It might mean a 4-year degree or higher, and I'm all for that. But it might mean that if you want to weld or you want construction trades or you're in manufacturing and it requires credentials for you to get there, that's okay too. And so that shift in what does education, higher education mean? And it's that wide range. It does have to be beyond high school. So that part's important. We have some growth rates from 2018 to 2021. A little hard to see, but you'll have access to the PowerPoint as well. Most of our counties have seen growth between 2018 and 2021. A few have not. We're really digging into what's happening in those counties. And there's a slide later on that highlights just the Northwest, and so I'll wait till we get there to look at our numbers. There's still challenges. We still, as of June, in North Carolina, had almost 370,000 job openings. 1.2 million North Carolinians in that age range, 25 to 44, do not have post-secondary degrees or credentials. 2 out of 3 students identify cost as a barrier. So here in the Rotary's contribution to our high school students here is just incredible and remarkable and wonderful, and makes me proud to be a Rotarian, although I'm in another county, so go Rotarians. The piece here that concerns me maybe the most is that 43% of those 35 to 44-year-olds North Carolinians don't earn a family-sustaining wage. And family-sustaining wage by our organization is set at 300 times the poverty level. So what that means in some real numbers, if you're an individual with no dependents, you're only supporting yourself to live independently without help from family, friends, faith, community, or public supports, you need to make $17 an hour. If you are an individual and you have 3 children, 3 dependents to support, you need to make $52 an hour to be able to live independently, fully. So when you think about it in those terms and you look at the wages that there are, although there are good wages out there, what we're asked for our people, our families, it's a hard road.
Repeat that. You said for families and
If you are an individual and you support 3 dependents, it's $52 an hour. $52 an hour. And there's some statistics. It is. There's some numbers out there where we get, and that's across North Carolina. So it's possible that McDowell's could be a little lower. There's some data once we dig into this attainment focused community work that we can look at exactly what does it mean for McDowell County, but it's not far off. We also have this challenge of a leaky pipeline, and this is looking at 9th grade through that age 24 when you would finish your degree. If we have 100 9th graders, by the time we reach 6 years post-high school, which would be about age 24, 28 have earned a degree or credential that would lead to that family-sustaining wage. So we have some spots along the way that we can look at locally about what does that mean.
Is that in all of North Carolina, or is that?
This is all of North Carolina, and here's McDowell County, and the rest of the Northwest. So in McDowell County, about 21, and this would be from 2022 data. We will have data coming up soon for this.
21 out of our 100.
9th graders. Yeah, and you can see, across the different spots where folks can fall out of the pipeline. So you can even start to identify what's happening, and that's what this local work's about. It's what's happening at these spots along the pipeline that are keeping folks from moving forward. Is it justice involved? Is it, the opioid crisis? Is it simply they just didn't know the options, and do we need to educate people about options? So that's what this local work is about. Is what do we do together? And it's going to take all of these cross-sector organizations to answer these questions. We across the state are tracking about at this moment 31,000 behind. If we stay on the of what we need to reach our goal of 2 million by 2030, if we stay on this trajectory, we actually in 2030 will be 80,000 behind, because that trajectory will continue to widen. And that's with the things that we're doing currently. So what we need to do is accelerate this action and see what we can do to grow our numbers faster. Now, I am so fortunate to be part of a really wonderful team. As of February, I started last November in this role after retiring from Caldwell County Schools after 34 years. I have a friend who says I failed at retirement, and I did, and I love what I'm doing, so it's wonderful. But we work out of Commerce and by Commerce Prosperity Zones. So there are 8 of us. February was when we hired the last 2. Preston actually came from NC Works, but our team collectively has a wide range of skills as well. Angie Jenkins over there in the Northeast, she came out of CTE and pre-K. Brett Brenton was a social studies teacher, and then he worked for an educational nonprofit. Preston, he was NC Works, is his background. Tracy Metz has been a principal on the east and the western side of the state, and she worked along the Koala boundary. Sanemet, she's our urban girl. She came from New York, and when I say urban, I mean it. She came from New York City. Originally grew up there, and then she worked in Washington, D.C. She's a social worker by trade, and also works for the university system along the way. Robert Locklear was an associate superintendent in the Sand Hills, and then Tony came from College and Career Access, and she's worked between the K-12 and the community college. So when you put us all together, and my last position was coordinator of innovation and online education, but prior to that I was a principal and instructional coach and mostly a middle school teacher for about 19 years. So when you put us together, I just got an amazing team. It's phenomenal. So we work in 3 ways. We work to accelerate action, we work to monitor and report progress, and we work to identify and advocate for policy solutions. We do truly believe that a better educated North Carolina will lead to that economic prosperity and upward mobility for all. If this were ever a thing like, well, we just need workers, let's get people to work, it wouldn't be enough. It's about that whole holistic approach and that quality of life. So we produce county profiles once a year. They show 18 key performance indicators. I won't go into much detail about these because we could do days worth of training on them, but I'll be glad to come back. Each county has one. We report them to the General Assembly. Our next one for 2023 will be published in February of 2024. We shifted the date just a bit to make sure that we captured actually the K-12 data better, since those reports don't come out until the fall. One of the key pieces of information, well, let's do these. There's 4 transition areas. Dr. Porch, who's a community college president in Caldwell County, referred to these as cradle to career, and I really loved that because we start with NC pre-K indicators and we go all the way through that time when you have a career and you're established. Those foundations, broadband, the data analysis, and then we want to add a 3rd bullet, and that is teacher qualifications and teacher preparation, and make sure that without those foundations, we really can't meet these goals. The indicators here, the 18, are broken down among those transition areas. The red, these are the 2025 and 2030 goals. This is a new slide, and I really do like it. But if you look on our academic readiness and college and career access slide, we haven't met any of those 2025 goals yet. Now, it isn't 2025, so that's not necessarily a problem, but those are some indicators of where we need to spend some time. When you get to post-secondary completion and workforce alignment, and we look overall, we're 1 to 5% away from the 2025 goal. And remember, we're aiming for 2030, so it's good to have benchmarks along the way. We also have those broken down by demographics, but it's state demographics, and we'd need to do those per county to get an accurate picture. Opportunities for growth, these are for the state. We take all that data, our data analytics folks, which is Carolina Demography, and then we have a researcher on staff as well. Put those together and come up with, you really could probably make some moves fast in these areas. This is state. This is McDowell. So first year persistence, students seem to be moving into school. Do they stay to that second year? So that movement to second year. The transition to post-secondary, are they moving to post-secondary? And that could show a little bit of that pipeline number. And then chronic absenteeism, which is a community problem. It isn't just a school system problem, although it is on report cards. It takes a whole community to impact chronic absenteeism. So the question is, how might we collaborate to increase our collective impact and turn this state goal into locally owned and driven work? And McDowell has already done that, and is doing that very well. So we're actually looking at, first of all, finding out what you're doing and then accelerating that work. And these next few slides, I will go quickly through those, but this is a local educational attainment collaborative map that I mentioned. There are two in the Northwest Prosperity Zone, McDowell and then Work in Burke, the pink and purple. Here is the slide that shows you that 2018 to 21 attainment growth. McDowell sits at 1.06%. Those others in green show you the counties that had above 5% in the state. Something interesting is that, and we'd have to look at individually at McDowell, but across our Northwest Prosperity Zone, our population declined 1%, but our number of credentials grew 8%. So that says that we're doing some good work. However, where are our people going? And we do know there's a silver tsunami out there as well. So looking at the population and context is important. One area that isn't mentioned on your profile but shouldn't be ignored is Opportunity Youth. Those are 16 to 24-year-olds that are neither employed nor enrolled, nor enlisted, as I watched ROTC. They're just existing. And in North Carolina, it's 1 in every 9, 16 to 24-year-old. Those data are self-reported. And so it always makes me wonder, could our data be higher? Because if you are not engaged, are you going to answer a survey to tell us you aren't engaged? But
what's green and orange?
Oh, let me see.
I'm sorry. It's
No.
okay. I don't want to put you on the spot. That's fine. I'm just curious.
No. It's here. I have a paper copy because I always have a backup for technology. Online education taught me a few things. Let's see. So the green is the Hispanic population at 14%, and Black population is orange at 18.2%, and American Indian is 25.8%. So, okay, and Opportunity Youth in McDowell County is 18%. Okay. One of the work that we did last spring, in addition to the LEACs, was really focus on financial aid and getting our students to fill out the FAFSA, because it's a road not just to federal dollars, but also to scholarship dollars. North Carolina leaves about $100 million in federal aid on the table because we're not filling out the FAFSA. And we think that could be, kind of low-hanging fruit if we can help people understand what the FAFSA can do for them, and sometimes get over the fear of filling out that application. And sometimes it's daunting if you don't know what to do with it. When I filled it out, and I'm educated, it was a daunting task. So helping students and families do that's really important. We did have a financial aid summit. We work in partnership always. That was with the North Carolina State Educational Assistance Authority last June, and we'll continue that work.
I'm learning that that's a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at least there was a student who graduated not this past year, but the year before, who I ran into, and I asked him, how come you're not in school? How come you're not in college? And he said, I could not get my parents to fill out the FAFSA.
Yeah.
They wouldn't give me the information.
Yeah. And
I thought, and this is a smart kid who is missing out, so he's working at Walmart instead, where he could have gone and gone to school, but could get zero family support. And my guess is just because, not so much that they were trying to hide anything, it was an intimidating process.
Yeah. Wraparound services and community involvement, that could be something Rotary. Well, Rotary, I'm gonna put them on the spot again. They've done so much, but Rotarians who serve, learning how to help walk alongside families to fill out the FAFSA could be an easy lift, because those are trusted community members. A lot of trust involved. The other piece are language barriers. I met with our Western CFNC rep. I happened to be at a conference I was at over the weekend, and he covers half the state, but he's more than willing to come wherever, and lives in Catawba County. So, making connections for those initiatives is another piece of my role. FAFSA completions for McDowell, 40% here. That was as of May 2023. Could be higher now. This slide hasn't been updated since then, and those numbers continue to grow. I think it will be through October before they do the cut for whatever 2023 would be. There is a FAFSA completion. I think it moved over to the NCSEAA site, but if you go to our website, you can find what's happening currently with FAFSA. Another project is our Adult Learners Initiative, and that's in partnership with John and Belk Endowment, Community College System, the Belk Center. Right now, they're in cohort 3. You see the circles, the community colleges that have been involved so far in the Northwest, and that really focuses on those 25 to 44-year-olds that have some college but didn't finish. So how do we re-engage those, reconnect those adult learners across our region? A little more than 22,000 who have started some college but didn't quite finish. And then you saw this chart earlier, but the Workforce Credentials Collaborative, those are industries who are meeting to tell education, especially community college driven and then CTE, where we think this industry is going, this market, labor market is going, and where can, if you're helping people guide to a path that means something to them and they can earn those wages, what are those credentials that matter the most in that realm? There are 4 categories, and you can go to nccareers.org and take a peek at what's listed. Over 150 credentials listed now. We count the essential and the career credentials, not because the others don't matter, but because those 2 are the ones that will bump you to that family sustaining wage. Everyone, no matter where you're working or what your wage is, should have those foundational credentials, like I think it's SafeServe, the soft skills, ServeSafe, those skills. Everyone should have those, but then the essential and the career. And so there's some high school credentials that don't get counted in those foundationals, but they still matter. So trying to make sure that we don't devalue those, but that we're looking at those credentials that lead to those higher wages for our purposes. And then this is really why I'm here tonight and what Superintendent Gritt mentioned about the resolution. We're working, now that there are 8 of us, regional impact managers, we're going county to county to try and get our essential partners kind of on the same page and start working even closer because there's good collaboration in most counties. But to endorse that state goal, that $2 million by 2030, adopt a local attainment goal, and then develop an action plan that aligns with your strategic plans. So your county plans, your school board plans, that it should align, it shouldn't be another. But out of these areas where you could focus, where would you like to work so that we can see some movement fast, execute that plan, and then ultimately get to that local attainment goal by 2030. Previously, before we had the local goal attached, McDowell Community Technical College had endorsed the goal, and McDowell County Schools had endorsed that goal not long after COVID. And in the Prosperity Zone, we have our workforce boards who have endorsed. But what we're asking is we retake a look at that resolution, look at the local goal as well. And that local goal, when I met with the essential partners with the Chamber and EDC and Community College, they really wanted that stretch goal. 5,972 individuals. If you do all the things you're already doing, it's going to be 4,858 the projected where you will get. So, but the gap is 1,114 individuals to reach the 2 million by 2030 goal with McDowell's kind of fair share. So that's why I'm here tonight. I wanted to tell you that what we can do and how I'd love to partner with you, but also to ask that you consider this resolution and then work with those other cross-sector partners to begin a plan toward McDowell's educational attainment. And I think that's what this slide says. So thank you. Questions? I'll be glad to entertain those.
Okay. I think I could ask you probably 1,000 questions. Great data. Like, this was some really good data. Thank you so much for coming and sharing this with us tonight. I'm just curious, like, is there a certain area in the state or a certain county or a certain group that's just, you're seeing bigger results than other areas?
When you look at that 2018 to 21, there's 10 kind of top 10 in that growth from 18 to 21. So we're just now really digging into that. That data came out about a month and a half ago, so it's still fairly new. Clay County over there in the west was one of those counties that made these tremendous gains, and the counties around them didn't make the same kinds of gains. And so that's what I'm really interested in, because you all know and I'm from Caldwell County originally, when you start moving further east, we're very different in the mountains. Sure. And we, even in the Northwest, we don't have a central urban center. So when you want to gather in the Northwest, it's even hard to find a location that might be large enough
Sure.
to gather a large convening like Greensboro or Raleigh or
Right.
even Asheville and some of the Asheville. We have Asheville, but that's a long way. So
Right.
all that to say, looking at those numbers, that 2018 to 21, and then what's happening in those counties is probably our best information right now as far as pure data and no speculation. Haven't done enough of that to answer your question fully. We also do have a best practices dashboard that is in development. So those things that are happening that we believe are lifting up those local attainment numbers, collaboratives that are working. There's reports that are just about ready to be published from the local educational attainment collaborative. What happened, what worked, maybe what didn't. It works best if there is someone who's dedicated to focus on the work in the county or in that collaborative and kind of hold the work.
Mm-hmm.
And someone that isn't, I don't know how to say this exactly, but subject to budget shifts. So that if the budget is shifting and you might lose a position, you might lose that initiative. So that's a piece that we seem to be stability, things that are sustainable, even in FAFSA. If teams are sustainable and settled, we seem to see more results. So still digging into it.
Yeah, and I guess my other question, sort of piggybacking a little bit on what Ms. Popo said, and I see sometimes, and I've been invited before, several of us have, where we get to go up to the high school, maybe help a group with something, and you just see these amazing, bright students, and just like she said, they have all this potential, and then a year from now or 2 years from now, they're not finishing those degrees. So I'm curious, like as a system here, what can we do to better improve that, getting their foot in the door, and keeping them there to finish that 2-year degree, finish that 4-year degree, because clearly it leads to a much more sustainable living conditions, and I mean, that blew my mind, $52 an hour.
Yeah.
I need a raise.
I think apprenticeships, internships are key.
Okay.
Mentorships, and sometimes relationships. People who will walk alongside, culturally responsive.
Mm-hmm.
There was a great training with the community college that looked at generational differences, understanding that we just don't think the same way, and how do we overcome those gaps. I think all those are some strategies that will help. I do think it's local, because if we're going to have those relationships, it's going to be because they're built within the communities, and with cross-sector partners. Who else can we bring to the table to have these conversations? And then really starting with those 5 keys: government, education, and business, and those leaders first. So if we can get together and then go look at the grassroots, what's the work?
Dr. Case, one of the things that always jumps out at me when we look at these numbers is the age range.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So really, when we start counting the age at 24, so many of our students may have came here, graduated, may have gotten some attainment at the community college and went on to another place. So their numbers would not necessarily be tracked within our numbers.
Right.
So I think you've got to look at this data with a little bit of, we know that we're growing more students than what we're seeing that we're maintaining.
Yes.
So I think that's one of the pieces that we've got to look at this from a community's perspective to say, is there, how can we help keep some of our students, some of our best and brightest students within our community? So when I look at some of those numbers, that to me is what we're talking about and why it involves the entire community.
Yes.
We've certainly got data to support growth and the number of kids that we're graduating that have these credentials, but all of a sudden they're not here.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I do want to point that out to our board, and I think that'll be an important conversation moving forward. And really, that's why it takes us all these groups sitting together. the commissioners. Are you presenting there?
I am not yet, but
Not yet.
I do hope that I will be, and that from this presentation that I'll be able to keep moving. We have one county in our region that has all those essential partners on board, and then Burke County has started with commissioners. So it's a little bit slow. It takes about 6 months to get through those boards and make sure we all have the same information to come from some sort of baseline understanding, and then start digging into our counties
I know we had a lofty
individually.
goal of trying to get
Think
you
we can.
before all those boards by January, but we're still pushing, right?
I think we can. I think we can.
Oh,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
Gallup did an interesting study recently with the Walton Foundation, and just recently published, and they did surveys of Gen Z, which is our kind of 13 up to about 26, 27. And interestingly, the data said that these children are not very hopeful about their life right now. They do have hope for life later. Like at some point, they have this sense that at some point I'm going to get there. But right now, they're not very hopeful about their own lives. And so it's an interesting thing to make sure that as we're looking at this too, to consider their perspective of where they are at in their own lives, kind of thing, and that there is a sense of hopelessness among Gen Z about their, as far as thriving is concerned and things like that. But they still have a hopefulness for later down the road. Like at some point, this is going to get better, but there's this sense of hopelessness right now. So Gallup and the Walton Foundation.
Oh, I'd love to see that. It makes me wonder. So a piece of the innovation role was about experiential learning and different ways to learn, and how do you get hands-on at those early ages. And one of the principles at elementary, so how do you teach them about the world and what they can contribute right now, and what can we do there. So interesting. I'd love to see that. Thank you.
I think it's interesting with our strategic plan. I think all of this is so interconnected because our team did such a great job identifying the root causes of a lot of where we are. And one thing here is just understanding that generational poverty, that our staff does an amazing job. Looking back at our principals, they do an amazing job every day of just telling our kids, you don't have to stay here. There's always something else. And just thank you guys so much again for what you do to just continue to present opportunities to our kids. And I think as a district, just how do we support them? Because it starts in pre-K. For us, how do we support these kids to say, you are going to graduate from high school, and we are going to walk every step with you. But I think it's just an exciting time, because that's what I was thinking as we were listening to your presentation. It just correlates so much to what our strategic plan has already identified as some key issues, and hopefully all of our community partners. I do want to ask, because I was reading the different groups in the county, will the Old Fort aldermen be included in this as well? Do you have plans to work with them?
In the so I'll speak to the county who has them. They had 8 municipalities, so their commissioners and all of their 8 municipalities, their school board, their community college, their EDC, and their chamber all have signed the resolution. And so they are just at the step of beginning to figure out, now what? Where do we align, and what are the actions we can take? So yes, I do hope that all municipalities.
We'll see if we can get them on board with you.
And you have my email as well, so feel free to email me, and I'll reach right back out to you. But I'll do an email out to the board as well. I'll send that through Becky and Superintendent Grit to you all. But yeah. Local one. Another piece that's interesting are patterns of travel between jobs in our Northwest area, because McDowell might travel over to Burke to work, but there's a good number of Burke citizens traveling over to McDowell. So adding that to that level of information, which usually doesn't come on the school board side, but our cross-sector partners and looking at chamber and EDC can also tell you where some of those students they still may be here, but they're just over there for a moment, and they'll be back. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Case.
Thank you, Dr. Case. So, it's time for Ms. Basney to give the teacher representative report. And gosh, I don't know what else you can say after all of that.
Well, I've learned when I do these that it's harder and harder to nail down just a couple highlights because every school is so proud of everything they're doing and there's so much to share every month. So I hope I've covered North Cove and Marion to its justice because they gave me lots of information. So this has been super fun to do. First up is North Cove. They had a great turnout for their open house. They had, I think it was a book fair. That I have a couple pictures from that as well. They have new flooring in their building as well, but they celebrated instructional assistants, EC assistants, and their tutors. They have started new Girls on the Run Club. If you don't care to go one more slide, I've got some photos for them. They had their first meeting at the end of September for Girls on the Run. They had a great turnout for that as well. Next is Marion. They had celebrated Custodian Appreciation Week around the time that they sent in some photos for me. And they celebrated student birthdays. I thought this was really cute with bulldog bracelets in their morning announcements. They had a few field trips in September, and one was to the Land of Oz with their third grade. If you'll go one more slide, I've got a couple pictures. One of their first grade classes is in those first two pictures there, and it says, I quoted it from what they sent me, "What a wonderful day of learning. Many engaging learning opportunities to practice reading skills, letter formation, blending, sentence building, spelling, and vocabulary." And this class explored their student dashboard to discover all of these things in Miss Ingram's first grade class. And then there's a little bit from their field trips. I thought that was really neat. And then the last thing, I put this in there just to talk a little bit about middle school. We had our rivalry games over the last couple of weeks with East and West. And I gave a few of the scores from what I could capture. West did great with soccer. They did great with volleyball, but East did win our football game. And we had a wonderful turnout. It was at the high school field. If you don't care to go one more photo, I thought this was a great picture that just captured our event. Great turnout countywide for this as well.
That game kept me on the edge of my seat. It was a great game.
We had a great turnout for it as well.
Who was pulling for? I was neutral. I stood right in the middle. I was pulling for the Titans. That's right.
That is all I have for our October highlights. Next month, I will capture some information from West Middle School. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Basley. Always our pleasure. Okay, then. Item 8 on the agenda this evening is an accountability presentation. And Dr. Grit, I'll let you kind of get this queued up for Mr. Hughes.
Sure.
And Derek, you're ready?
All right. So the staff just sent me a picture. They're at the conference and they got their feet kicked up here trying to watch they're watching us there on TV. So they just wanted me to know that they're fully in tune but ready to go. I think we've got Mr. Hughes on the line with us, and he's ready to start this accountability presentation. I will tell you, we had a pretty good article that ran in the paper that gave us some information. That gave the community information on some of the great things that are going on accountability wise, particularly. And I don't want to steal his thunder, but the COVID recovery numbers were really strong in McDowell County. And that's not something that I'll be able to take any credit for. I'm just happy to be part of it. But I know Mr. Oliver and the work that the team did was very evident in that. And that was one of those things that we wanted to promote in the community. Even though sometimes those numbers aren't where you want them to be, when you look at where we were before and then we've had that COVID loss and the direction that we've came, it's been pretty impressive. As a matter of fact, that's probably an area we're leading the state in, those measures. But Mr. Hughes, are you on there with us?
Yes, sir, I am. Can y'all hear me okay?
We can. All right. If
All right, and Mr. Abernathy, we've had to mute this because I couldn't mute my sound, so we had to mute the whole presentation. So when you unmute, you should be able to be heard now. And when I get finished presenting, I'll just mute my end, and you should be able to talk when you want to. So I've got about 16 slides, and board, it's a pleasure to be with you tonight from Cyberville in Raleigh, and you have these in your possession. So I'll go through these pretty quickly, and if you have any questions, you can stop me along the line, and we'll talk about it.
It's too late now. I mean,
First thing,
no.
everything was released on September the 6th. You can get it from that website.
Get back in there, baby.
Everything that you want to know about accountability from about the prior 4 or 5 years.
He just said, Mr. Abernathy, we had to mute you if you.
Hey, Greg.
Don't worry about it.
Yes.
Greg, can you hold on just a second? Chuck, can you
I can.
mute?
Okay, I'm here, barely. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're picking up some of your family conversation on the
Oh, don't
presentation.
do that.
Okay. All right.
Derek, can you mute him? Can you make sure he's muted?
Okay. Okay. Well, Mr. Hughes, don't let us hold you up.
Okay. All right. So off we go. So the link there has been active since the 6th of February. That's the one where you can get data from several years back, along with this past year. And I say this every year, but the biggest file is a monster. It's a big, huge spreadsheet, and even hooked up to the internet, it takes you about 30 to 45 seconds to download that one. I had to download it today to look at something. It took me 5 minutes on the wireless here at the convention center. So a lot of stuff is there. So just wanted to give you that so you would have it. And now let's look at proficiency by school. And this is locally. And just as a reminder to those of you who have not heard this, the acronyms at the top, the 2 right-hand columns. GLP, CCR, grade level proficiency, that's levels 3, 4, and 5. CCR is college career ready, that's levels 4 and 5. And I always like to give both of these. This one is ordered, I believe, by GLP, and that's where we get our state grades as well. They do the grade level proficiencies. And one thing that I want you to notice is the bold part, because look who's ahead of who. And that's the first time that's happened since I've been doing this. McDowell County Schools above the state average, and we're not a tenth of a point above the state average. We're a point and a half, and that's going to continue to grow. So you can go through every school there in the district and see where we stand. Next slide. This is a comparison by year, and I do this every year as well to show you where we stand as far as level 4 and 5s go. You can look at 18, 19, and you can look at 20, 21, and you can see. And everybody knows what happened in those 2 years, but you can also see that everything's starting to come back. So that's a good slide to have for everybody to see how things are going here. It's important that we graduate our students. Next slide is cohort graduation rate, and this is a busy slide. I apologize about that, but just so that everyone can see where we stand. Everything's going to start this year with the 2018-19 school year. So I want to point out something in 2021-22. You can see our district rate. And, you know, McDowell High has the largest graduating class of our high schools. And so they pretty much drive our rate. And so if you can look at them for 21-22, I went up to Miss Bennett at the end of the school year and I said, you know, I've got some bad news. You know, your graduation rate is going to be about 74%. She said, oh, yeah, we know that. And that's because we've not been able to reach kids to get them back in. And we can't find them. We can't reach them. We've done everything that we know how. And obviously, if you look from last year to this year, you can see that they've gotten kids back in. And so the graduation rate for McDowell High up and the district up. So that's a good stat for us to be showing this year. And now we start doing some proficiencies by district. And this is what, when Mr. Garrett was here, he asked me to do this, and I continued doing that. And I wanted to show you, this slide is it's one that
we put in how each district did from the prior year compared to 18, 19. That's why it's pretty busy over there. You can also see down there where we were in relation to the state, just right behind by about half a point. And we didn't move. Everybody else was down big chunks. But then when you start coming back to 2021, you can see how things changed. Everybody drops a bunch of points. And I'll just leave that there for a second so you can see it. You can see 21, 22 coming up here. You can see the numbers starting to increase in every place. And in this past years with the folks that are around us. And this is always the folks that are around us that touch us, that are in the east and or the west and the northwest. And again, you can see McDowell County above state average there, and that's just going to continue. One of the things that we can look at is a state ranking by yearly comparison when you're looking, and you can see where we rank. We have stayed consistently in the 50s, except for that 1 year, 2021. But we're 57. When you include the state numbers, we're 57th in the state. And then a huge one that you can see by subject as far as where we rank with English, the EOCs, English 2, biology, Math 1 and Math 3. And our percentage, again, GLP, that's grade level proficiency. And you can see where we stand and what we gained or lost from the previous year in the state. Would point out to you CGR, that's a plus 20. From the previous year. Next slide is one that I have done since I've been in the district, showing our growth, multi-year growth trend. And it is busy, but it shows a lot. And you can see where we were with my very first year, 12, 13, that I did this. And you can see where we stand now in 22, 23. And how things have changed color-wise over that time. So a whole lot of blue and green and not much red. And as a district, our growth, 21, 22, we had 14 out of 15 schools that met or exceeded growth. That's 93.3%. Last year, we had 11 out of 15. That's 73.3. And I think that I was talking to Dr. Britt earlier that the 93.3 got out, that possibly that's what it was this past year. No, that was my fault for not getting the 73.3 out. But that's where we stand from this past year. Talked about our COVID numbers, and this is a chart that I made last year to show exactly where we stand. And again, I said this about 5 times. It's a busy chart right here. The ones I would like to point out to you are on the far right, where you see the decrease from 18, 19 to 2021, and the increase from 2021 to 2022, and from 21, 22 to 22, 23. That is where you get into the meat of what we're doing here. You can see we knew there was going to be a decrease, and you can see exactly what it was for each school. But you can also start to see the climb back, and I think it's important to include that that we're having a lot of positive numbers since we had that big decrease. And again, well, you can just see where we stand. And board, this is the last one. I think is one that you have been given a little while ago. It just gives us a comparison of where we were last school year and for 22, 23, where each school was as far as their grade and their growth, and a lot of good information there. And you can see the progress that's been made and where we still need to grow. So that pretty much finishes me up on my end. I'm not going to stop sharing because I don't want to mess everything up and cut myself off. But I'll be glad to answer any questions that anyone has.
Mr. Hughes, Miss Terry English, I was noticing on the slide for the 4-year COVID percentages and the amount of increase.
Yes, sir.
It seems that our students that are expected to score 3, 4, or 5, that they tend to really be showing the results of the effort of the staff and the program there, because their increases seem to be markedly improved from those students that were expected to score a 4 or a 5. So that mid-level student is really getting a lot of support from our staff and a lot of investment from our staff. And that just
And I agree with that.
struck me.
We have a lot of kids that have that score level 3 to get onto proficiency and to get grade level proficient. We see that a lot. And we can usually count between 10 and 12 points difference between the two, but we're starting to see a little bit more. We start to get a lot of kids in the level 3 area.
So, and it may very well be that by next year, a number of these level 3 students may progress to become a level 4 reader next year. That's
yes, sir.
the hope.
That's what we want.
Right. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Hughes?
I did hear one question that came up just listening up here, and it was CGR, and that's cohort graduation rate.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry about that.
And all this data is available to the public at the link that you provided at the beginning of your presentation, right?
Every bit of it right there. And in prior years as well. You can dig as deep as you want to dig with anything and any school system in the state, all right there.
Okay, and Dr. Grip, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that link is also on our webpage, district webpage.
I think so. If not, we need to make sure that it is.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, I feel fairly certain it is.
All right. Mr. Abernathy, you have any questions, comments? Okay. Okay then. Well, Mr. Hughes, we certainly thank you for your time and your hard work deciphering
Mr. Chairman,
all that data. Yes, sir.
thank you. Thanks for asking. You know, it would be, and you kind of went in and out, and I really appreciate the hard data. It's kind of what all school board members are most interested in, not just me. But Greg, and Doctor, what would be interesting would be to know the numbers to get us to 90% on a graduation rate. And then do you track ACT and or SAT scores still?
Yes, sir.
ACT, yes, it is part of the reporting system for accountability.
Again, you may have gone over it, and that family noise may have drowned you out. But it would be neat to be able to say, and we used to be able to say this a long time ago, and it plays real well with people moving their families from other locations here to be able to say that we graduate 90% and we have SAT scores above the state average, and going into the 6th grade, X% are reading at grade level. And those three things allay a lot of concern about that people might voice. And I'm starting to hear that from companies, saying that, they're concerned about the educational system in North Carolina. So anyways, I give you that. Thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Abernathy. Just to point out a number for us, we were up a positive 25 points, and our state ranking is number 45 in the state of North Carolina. Our ACT work keys performance is 56.8. That's the number that we were at. So we've had a marketed improvement over the past year. I'd like to be able to see that number continue to grow. I think that's a great point. And I've noted the question about what it would take to get to that 90%, and that's Obviously, in our strategic goal, we know we wanted to increase by 3%. I think it was each year moving forward. So that's going to get us really close to that 90% that you're talking about. So we're well on our way there.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Anything else? Mr. Hughes, thank you, and good evening.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a good evening.
Okay. Item 9 on the agenda this evening is correspondence. And Ms. Smith, is there any correspondence? Well, okay. Are there any requests to address the board? Okay. So we'll move along then to item 11, unfinished business. And the first item are policy clarifications and an amendment to some policies from the first reading that we were presented at last month's meeting. And Dr. Gritt, I know you've been right in the middle of all of this, so I'll let you do the talking.
Very good. Thanks again. This is a simple change. We had a question in our when we initially brought these policies before you, and this is, if you'll remember, these are all the policies for the Parents' Bill of Rights that are coming out. So one of the things that we did was we contacted Attorney Chris Campbell to get some different language, and to be honest with you, we have language now that I think you're going to see across the state, and that was a question that Mr. Abernathy brought to our attention. But in that policy 34 or 3540, that is the only one that we of that policy group that we brought before you last month that we're making any recommendation of a change. And I will ask the board just to kind of look with me there. And this is based on, again, consultation with legal counsel, and it specifically talks about the language change. It was what we were looking at was in grades through 5th grade, and we went ahead in ours and we said, in addition, there shall be no classroom instruction on these same topics 5th through 12th grade, just to show that that's really not in the curriculum nor the standard course of study. Not surprisingly, but across the state, that's something that we're seeing a lot of this policy be reworded to explain that. It just was kind of vague the way that one came out, so that was the recommendation there. Also, with that, I want to point out that Mr. Campbell encouraged us to slow down just a little bit on those policies and allow the state budget to come out, which we did because there were some pieces in there, but this was the only change that he had recommended. Also, to allow this 30-day time period from this board meeting until the next board meeting for anyone who might have a public comment that they'd like to make at our next board meeting. So this policy will continue to be in review during that time period, and we wouldn't ask for any action on it tonight, but that is an update that I feel like will be more than likely something that you're going to see in a lot of districts, and that's one that originated here, and I thank the board for asking the question.
Anyone else need any questions answered on the policy clarifications, amendments? I did speak with Mr. Campbell a few weeks ago. Well, in fact, just after our last meeting, and the book, or all of the policy revisions that we were presented with, are what we as a board need to pass on so that we will be in compliance with state law.
Yes, sir.
And it's not great big changes, but it just helps us to comply with the law in the way that we operate and what we offer students, how we offer it to them, and such as that. It just clarifies our position in this whole big scheme. Okay. Well, it said Ms. Dowder was going to help you do that, but I don't see her on the premises.
No, Miss Stoutle's under the weather today. So.
Oh, bless her heart. Okay.
Happy to stand in.
Well, at least we got done quickly without her help. You can note that in the record, Miss Smith. Next up, facilities update with Mr. Brian Oliver. Sir, we're awaiting.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board, Dr. Britt, school leaders, special guests, thank you for being here tonight. It's always a pleasure to share with you all the great things happening in McDowell County Schools. Before I talk about facilities, I want to steal a moment and talk about something that you just heard about from Mr. Hughes, and I just want to say thank you to all of our principals and their staff for their hard work this past year, and our instructional staff here at the district who work so hard to help our schools improve. Yeah, there are some folks who have results that they're not happy with, and I've been on both ends of that as a principal. I've been one of those schools that went from a B to an A, and I've been one of those schools that went from a B to a C. And when your results aren't what you want them to be, it really hurts. But I guarantee you, the principals we have, that will just make them work harder. I have no doubt about that. And I'm really proud of the hard work last year. We added an A, we added another B, and we have nothing below a D, those are good results. So I'm really proud of that. And I just appreciate everyone's hard work last year. Dr. Grit, thank you for allowing me a moment. So we'll start with some photos. The real unfinished business part of the facilities update is the construction project at McDowell High School, which at this point is the tennis court complex. The multi-purpose field is complete other than the safety fence that will be installed. But if you look at the tennis court complex now, you can see that the building is really looking like a building. It has a roof, it has doors, it has utilities coming in there at the back corner. You can see right there. If you look at the courts, you can see paving, you can see sidewalks, and you see fence posts. We'll have fencing around the court areas, which will separate the different courts. So things are moving quickly at the tennis court complex. We're really proud of all the work. Go ahead, Derek. What's the next one? Is that okay? So if you'll go back to the tennis court, and I'll speak to that in just a minute. So if you look at, you probably can't see a lot of the things inside, but there's a lot of work going on inside the building. Electrical has been installed. The plumbing is all roughed in. The fixtures aren't in yet, but they will be soon. And everything that should be underneath the grounds is there. So all of that infrastructure work has been done. So a lot of great work happening there. The paving, we should see pavement on the road going down to the courts, and then repairing that part at the softball field where the construction crews had the large dumpster before, which tore up the pavement right there at the softball field. That will all be repaved, and that all should look really, really nice in a short time. So very excited about that. Okay, Derek, thank you. All right, so this fencing, this is fencing that's on the back side of East Middle School down in the neighborhood, and I just wanted you to see what that's looking like. This has been an issue for decades, where folks could just walk through yards and through the woods and up to the campus at night, and really anytime if they wanted to walk through the woods. And so this has been an issue that we've needed to address for a long, long time. This is off of Moorhead Street and then Pine Grove, if you are wondering where that is. So if you go down Baldwin from east, you would turn right on Moorhead, and then Pine Grove is right off Moorhead, and you can see that work. So a lot of good work going on there. Our maintenance crews worked really hard to bush hog all of that and clear it out before the fencing contractors moved in. And so that's going to be a huge safety improvement at East Middle, but I think it's also an improvement for the property owners, because hopefully it will stop some of the folks just passing through who shouldn't be doing that. So hopefully we've had nothing but positive response so far from the property owners. Hopefully that's what it will be. Okay, Derek. So lots of great flooring improvements throughout the district recently, and this is in the auditorium at East Middle. And East Middle, you see, is getting a lot of attention, but East Middle is an older campus. And it is really starting to look great. I know Tracy's excited with all those improvements. Tracy, thank you for these photos. I've been over there since then, but I didn't get those great photos. I walked around, but I didn't get the photos. But you can see how much nicer that looks than that old carpet that was where the new LVT is now. So we're very, very excited about that. Now, I did hear Tracy say that it was slick, but now I walked on it and my shoes didn't slide at all. Tracy, I think it's heels. I think it's just heels that are slick. So you'll have to check it again, but my shoes didn't slide at all. So moving on, this is the auditorium at the high school. Major improvement there. That's, again, another very old campus, but a lot of great things happening to that older building that are making it come back to life. So we're happy with that work. In this building, we had to remove the bleacher seats and then put them back, and that was a lot of hard work by our crew. But again, a major improvement there, not just in how it looks, but also in the health and comfort of our students and staff using the facility. You know, when you go into a classroom or an older building and the carpet's really old, you can smell that. You don't smell that now. So it smells nice and clean. Okay, Derek, thank you. Moving along. All right, great. So this is the new flooring in the auditorium at Eastfield. And I sent these to Derek by text later, and I appreciate you being able to get those loaded. Thank you. But if you remember the Eastfield auditorium before, that was all carpet. Now it's LVT. And that will be repainted also before students go back in. So we're going to, it's not only going to have new flooring, but also new paint throughout. And our guys were there putting the furniture and cabinetry back in place this afternoon. So some really, really big muscle movements in these areas over the past. And all of this happened in the last 2 weeks. All of the flooring changes and the fencing. All of this happened in the last 2 weeks. So lots of good work. Okay, Derek, thank you. All right, and I'll share some other things with you. This is just a small list of things that have happened in the district over the past week, and you can choose from it and ask questions as you wish. So a lot of custodial supplies have been delivered. That happens on a regular basis, but it doesn't happen without effort. So principals have to order what they want. Custodians have to place their orders with maintenance, and then that has to be requisitioned and delivered to the schools. I mentioned that our crews have been working to put the auditorium chairs back in place at the high school, and those were our carpenters and painters who were able to break free from what they normally do to help reinstall those bleacher seats. Our carpenters have also been working with paper towel dispensers, the automatic paper towel dispensers that we use ESSER funds for, and placing those strategically throughout the district. And those are making a huge difference too, I think. Locksmith, you don't realize how valuable locksmith is until they're out, because usually you have one, and if you have a backup locksmith, you're very fortunate. It's a skill set that's very hard to replace, but always lots of keys, lots of rekeying needed throughout the district. Our electricians have been working on phone and fire alarm systems. A lot of that work is with vendors, but a lot of that work is internal, and just doing repairs and determining what needs are, troubleshooting different issues with our electronics. our plumbers had a very busy week. So if you know, 2 weeks ago, our plumbers were extremely busy at Nebo with the water main break. Well, last week, they were really busy at Glenwood. They 3 different times had to work with the sewer lift station at Glenwood last week. So that kept them very busy as well. So they have been they've been working hard with plumbing deals with water and other things that move with water. Right. So those are the things they've been tackling in the last 2 weeks. And then I saw them here today addressing a leak here in the kitchen that they were able to troubleshoot and identify that. When you drive around and visit schools, you'll see those guys everywhere. And our plumbing crew, remember, we're a small district. We have 17 people in our maintenance staff. Our plumbing team is 2 people, Steve and Alan, and they do a great job. HVAC has been working on various heat pump issues and on the commercial cooking equipment in the kitchens. We, as you know, during the really hot weather, we had lots of cooler issues and freezer issues in our cafeterias, and we did have another cooler issue pop up last week, but they were able to address that. There was a question recently about floor machines, and I know regarding West Marion and the high school. West Marion has received a new floor scrubber, so I want to make sure you knew that. And Mr. Rourke said it was like Christmas when the new floor scrubber came in, and some other things came in with it. So good news there. 2 of the machines at the high school, one we had to replace the batteries; they would no longer hold a charge. And then another floor scrubber at the high school had a leak, so our guys were able to troubleshoot that and repair that. Those are key pieces of equipment, as you know, and they're about $5,000 a copy, so it's important that we take care of them and make them last. All right, we talked about fencing. We have more fencing that's going to be taking place soon. The high school, I believe, is up next for the fencing contractor. One of the areas that will be addressed with new fencing is there at the new multipurpose field, co-located with the JROTC building. And that will basically be an access fence, but it will have a pedestrian walkthrough that doesn't have a gate. It will just be a space for our students and staff to walk through as needed, but to keep vehicles out that don't need to be in there. But it will have a vehicle access. And then the other area was an area that Dr. Gritt identified when we first went and walked the grounds at the high school. And at the field house at the stadium, that huge brick wall there, which, I mean, it's a big drop. If someone, and kids like to sit there, imagine that. Kids like to sit on the edge of that, swing their feet and watch the ball game. It is a good place to watch a game. It's a nice vantage point, but it's also a little risky to sit there on the edge without. So we're going to be putting some aluminum fencing that matches the perimeter fence there at the front of the stadium, and that's what we'll have right there to create a safety barrier for that space. And a huge issue this week, for the next 2 days, Mr. Trinks will be accompanying the state fire inspector to all of our schools, both tomorrow and Wednesday. And each school will be inspected. We did some of our local fire inspector inspections last week. I think Adam was part of that last week, and I don't know if anyone else here was or not. But the state inspector will be here, so that's obviously very important. And so we feel like we're prepared for that, and we encourage our principals to make sure that your buildings are ready for that visit. Those are the points that I have for the board tonight. Are there any questions about any of that or other items?
Do we have any updates on the contingency for the tennis courts? Is the money still there, or did we lose it because we had to shift and we had bad soils?
Sir, we don't know for sure what it's going to end up at. We still have some contingency in place, but until we get to the finish line, it still needs to be considered obligated.
Okay.
Just in case, because things can, one thing like bad soil and suddenly you can't do a retaining wall and you have to move everything over. Luckily, we had good soil where the courts shifted to, so that
And
was
we saved money on the
that
retaining wall.
that broke in our favor. We did save money on the retaining wall, but we lost money on what we had to do to shift. So there is still contingency there, but until we get to the finish line, we need to look at that as being obligated.
And we're still looking at November for the completion date.
Right now, the goal is still December 1st, and with any luck, we'll be finished before then. Yeah, it's certainly possible that we can finish before the target date of 1 December.
I went down the other day. Is there some concern about the parking down there, like an activity bus being able to turn around? It looked like everything got shifted. Now you can't get an activity bus to turn around down there.
The bus can come down and park and turn, but there's less parking than there was in the original plan. There are less parking spaces, but there is still the ability to have a bus come down and park and turn.
Just as long as there's no cars in that parking lot.
They have to have less cars, and that there will be less spaces provided for that reason.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
That. Is there anything planned for like a grand opening? I know women's tennis finished Wednesday. Men's doesn't start till spring. Are we going to do anything special? You know, and that may be a question later on.
I think that would be a wonderful thing to do. I'll leave that up to
I wanted
Dr.
to
Grit,
challenge Dr. Grit to the first tennis match.
I think that'd be awesome.
You're probably going to win.
We could have a Bobby Riggs and was it Chrissy Everett or Billie Jean King who whipped him? Yes. So we could have a match like that.
Absolutely. Mr. Oliver, one of the other things that we talked about today was that you had gotten some quotes back on the flooring in the high school locker rooms that came back significantly higher than we thought that they might. So the facilities folks, we've got some discussions to have about what we want to do there.
Yes, sir, that's correct. And when you're looking at large spaces that require tile removal and replacement, that's a significant cost to remove tile and then to go back with tile. So there might be some choices that we have to consider.
Sure.
In lieu of going back with tile, or do we change what that looks like?
Well, and just even like with this room and some of the photos that you saw, I mean, the flooring can make such a tremendous impact on a room, and for some of those locker rooms that are now 50 years old and it's the original tile, we've got some work to do there. But I do know that coming back a little bit higher would seem to be a little bit discouraging today, but it's one of those that we want to pitch that out to this group and have some conversations about that as a facilities committee.
That's correct, and it's very consistent with the cost changes we saw with our construction project. It pretty much doubled in a year, and that's consistent with all parts of construction right now.
Thank you.
I know we were kind of looking at some possibilities of what we could do for the locker rooms at the high school. Can you give us an update on any of that, or and it's fine if we haven't done anything, because I realize we are in the middle of football season, so it's possible we haven't done anything.
Well, what we have done is we've gotten quotes back for flooring. We're in the process of getting quotes back for the lighting. We're going to be replacing all the plumbing fixtures in the locker rooms.
Okay.
We're also going to replace all the dividers or plywood if it's in place of a divider. All that's going to be replaced with new dividers, obviously, and it will have new paint throughout. And in the office spaces that don't have to be tile, those will be LVT. We've already made that decision, and then we're going to have to take a hard look at what we do with those tiled spaces. Just due to the cost, it's huge.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else have a question for Mr. Oliver? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Oliver, I just want to say on behalf of the board how much we appreciate you working on facilities for us these last several months. It really seems to have made quite a difference in things. So thank you.
Yes, sir. We have a great team. That's all I can say. We have a hard-working group of folks, and I can't tell you enough how much they do with a very small staff. They accomplish a lot. So I'm very proud of it.
All right. Okay. Is there's nothing else for unfinished business? Item 12 is new business. And the first bullet point there is approval of strategic plan revisions and extension of their strategic plan through 2025. So, Dr. Grit, if you care to enlighten the folks here.
Well, we don't have quite 3 hours to go through the whole strategic plan, so I'll keep it a little bit shorter tonight if that's all right with you folks. This is really the document that we put together that just kind of captures it all in one space. This is a draft document. I just put it in here to kind of give you guys an example of what we wanted to do. We would like to get a photo of the board, maybe all consolidated, standing together to put as part of this as well. But this is all your input. These are with the corrections and any changes that you guys had talked with us about. So we feel like we've got a good working document here and appreciate y'all's input on it. We would ask tonight for an approval of this. It will need an extension as well as an approval for the amendments to the strategic plan. So it would be that would how we, if you were making a motion, that might be how you do that.
Okay. All right. Well, we heard the presentation at the work session, and folks have had a chance to get familiar with it somewhat. And so this evening, the administration is asking us to approve the strategic plan as revised and extend the strategic plan through 2025. Is that
Yes,
correct?
sir, that's correct. And if you'll remember, the part of the rationale there was we did a lot of work to only have it hold open for a year, as well as and what we heard from Dr. Case tonight, helping to line us up with the community college. So 2025 is actually their same time frame, so we'll be on the same cycle as they will. And interestingly enough, Dr. Case's son is doing the strategic planning for the county. So they're in that same process as we are as well. I don't know that theirs will completely line up with ours as far as the years, but we're going to be close, all in the same proximity and doing this work.
Nice.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve the strategic plan as revised and to perhaps that should be two separate motions? And to extend the strategic plan through 2025. Anyone care to offer that motion?
Did you want two separate motions or put it together?
Either is fine.
I think it can be together.
Okay.
So move.
Okay. Ms. Mumal makes the motion, and Ms. Helms, Angela Allen Helms, makes the second. Is there any further discussion? The only question I have is that if you noticed in your board packet, the little sheet there, like so, you notice it's in 3 columns. And I think that was done on purpose so that it could be folded like into a pamphlet that we could provide to members of the public or civic groups or our community partners and make it something concise and easy. Of course, this is just an overview, but I thought that was really a good idea.
Well, thank you.
And it will be available to the public when?
Well, we'd like to go ahead and get it posted on the website soon, like within the week. And then as far as this, we're going to be working on what we want this final version to look like, and these trifolds, and get those out available for as well. It may take us a little bit longer on that. I do want to get like I said, I wanted to get a picture and some better quality pictures on there. Online, this looks great, but you can see when you print it out, it doesn't look as good. So that's one of those we want to work and get the right one.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion on the motion? So we have a motion to approve and a due second. No further discussion. All those in favor of the motion? And Mr. Abernathy, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. So the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on, the next bullet point is board self-evaluation, and we've talked about this off and on for since back in September. You got some information, and what I was hoping we could do tonight is kind of among ourselves decide whether the board is interested in moving forward with a self-evaluation. So I'd open the floor up to general comments if anyone has any. Anyone want to go first?
Well, I think it's a great idea personally.
Okay. All right.
I agree. I think we ask our staff to evaluate themselves on a pretty regular basis, actually. And so I think as a board, we can only go forward by looking at what we're doing well and some areas that we might need to improve on.
Okay. All right. Are there others that would like to speak? Okay. Well,
May I?
yes,
Chair,
sir.
can I say a quick word?
Absolutely.
In 15 seconds. I'm not sure that it's a good idea. I put that in an email to you.
Right.
And I think that because it's hard to explain. You know, it's easy to do one-on-one. It's kind of hard to explain, but I think that there's some real differences in their to talk them out right now. I'm not so sure that serves a really good purpose. One of your members last month questioned what the motivation was for this,
Mm-hmm.
and I appreciate him doing that. And I just wonder if it wouldn't be wise to wait a little while and just try to build a positive relationship before we crash into a critique of ourselves. And that's just an opinion. I also told you I'd support whatever the board did.
Okay. All right. Others that care to speak? Well, as I was talking with Mr. Campbell, I asked him if we needed an official action regarding this item, and he said if there was broad consensus that it would not be necessary, but if it seemed kind of on the fence that perhaps an official action might be warranted. So, I mean, I've heard two people say yes, and one people say doesn't think it's a good idea at this time, but would support it if that's what the majority of the board would like to do. So I guess where we're at then is, do we have a consensus to move forward with a self-evaluation? Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, can you give us an idea what we're talking about? What would that exactly look like? You know, when we're doing the self-evaluation, is this a form that we're going to fill out and it's going to be passed around to one another? What exactly are we talking about when you're talking self-evaluation?
Well, Ms. Smith forwarded to the board copies of the instrument that the School Board Association had offered for our consideration, and also she passed around or sent to each of us copies of the instrument that the Board of Trustees at the community college uses for their annual self-assessment, and was hoping maybe between those two, if we could decide this evening, yes, we want to, or no, we don't want to. If we do decide to move forward, perhaps at the work session this month, we could kind of hash out more about what we want the evaluation to look like. Would it be school board association? Would it be more like the community colleges? Would it be a hybrid of both? But I was hoping we could decide this evening if we want to proceed with a self-evaluation.
Oh, and that's what I want to clarify. I did get the stuff, and I thought that's what you were talking about. I mean, it's always good to do a self-evaluation. I just didn't know really the motivation of why we needed to do it, and would it be more harmful than good, or would it be, good for us to do?
Well, and,
So I'm like Mr. Abernathy too. I'll follow the board's lead, but
right.
I self-evaluate myself every day, just not on a form. So whatever you decide.
Mhm. Well, I'm sort of the same nature. I think if we all approach it positively, that we'll find those things that we all work together on and fully support. But I also think we'll find those things that we realize that we need to improve upon. And so I'm sort of like you and Mr. Abernathy. I kind of feel like we ought to do one, but I'm not sure. But what we shouldn't talk about it more after we decide whether or not we should take this on. So I'm open for suggestion or whatever. You act like you're dying to speak.
I'm not dying to speak, but I will.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing is, I think, like you said, I think self-evaluation. I don't know who said that, but self-evaluation is good. I think, we all have to do that. I know, Ms. Helms, you've said that before. Like in the profession that you work in, we're always being self-evaluating. People are always evaluating us. I don't think that there's any harm in that. I think the biggest thing for me is, what are we trying to achieve out of this? What is our goal as a board? What are we trying to get out of this? And as long as we go in knowing what it is that we're trying to achieve, I think then it's a great thing to do. Like, what information or data are we trying to collect? That's my biggest. What's the why? What do we want to learn? What's the purpose? And then I'll just say personally, there were parts of the one evaluation tool I really liked, and there were parts of the other one I liked, and I would love to have a discussion, possibly at a work session, of combining those two, because I thought that they both brought a lot to the table and could give us a lot of really great information.
Okay. So is there a consensus opinion then that we should continue this and begin to move forward? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So that seems to be a pretty strong consensus then. So we'll at the October work session, we'll try to reserve enough time so that we can bring our thoughts back about the evaluation instruments that we have and what we feel like maybe questions that we need to ask ourselves as a board that perhaps aren't or weren't included in those tools. So we'll talk about this more then at the October work session. All right. Okay. Moving on. Mr. Abernathy did or has asked on a couple of occasions that we consider recording our board work sessions. And Chuck, maybe you could speak to that a little more. I'm not sure if you were talking about televising or an audio recording or exactly what, but tell us what your thinking is on that.
Well, people are people will call and ask me, what's the difference between the two meetings? How do I follow it? It just seems confusing, and it would be it would send a nice signal, I think, to people if even if we just uh, posted the meeting and didn't. I mean, I was originally talking about putting it on the government channel, and like Thursday at 6 o'clock, you get to see the school board if you got cable TV. That may be too much, but you know, you've got people trying to follow us. Maybe not a lot, but you've got some, and it, there's special meetings where we um, where we take action and ones where we don't. And to be honest with you, the county handled it kind of similar to what you guys do. We went off camera for some things, but it just, I don't know. I think it would send a really good signal if we at least tried it
Okay.
and didn't do anything more than just. And if it costs money, I don't know that I want to, that I want to know what it costs to keep a staff person up there to do this. But just would it be a good idea and send a signal that would be positive for us to put all of our meetings online? And if you don't want to do it, that's okay. We'll move on. But I wanted to ask.
All right. Okay. Well, let's talk about this some. What's everybody thinking? Somebody needs to go first.
Oh, I'll be glad to.
Okay.
I think that our work sessions are already advertised as open meetings, and anybody's welcome to come to those that would want to. I think that if we do it that way, just like our meetings are open, and we don't see that we have huge amounts of droves of people coming to our monthly our monthly meetings. I remember back in the fall, perhaps December, when our boardroom was completely full, and then when public session ended, the entirety of the people that were here for our meeting left. And so at this time, if we bring it to a vote or we bring it to a straw poll, I will vote no.
Okay. All right. Are there others?
Well, I think the nice thing right now is that it's very informal. There are no decisions that are made. There are no votes that are taken. It's a lot of times we come in here in our blue jeans and it's not that it's about getting dressed up or anything, but it's just a lot more relaxed information and setup. I like the fact that we set up in a circle, and it's a little bit easier for all of us to have that conversation. It kind of seems to be a little bit more of our space. I don't know how well that would be or televised with the way our cameras are set up, how that would go over. Possibly it could go over with just a voice recording, but that's just personally me. I just like that relaxed environment where I can maybe ask some not so smart questions and not feel like I'm being recorded. I can let my hair down. Let's just put it that way. I'm a little more relaxed and comfortable not being recorded, but that's just my opinion.
I would echo Ms. Muma's thoughts on that in particular, is that I recognize that I'm a verbal processor, and so I may say something, and then I need to hear you say the contrary, and I may not have an opportunity to go, oh, that's a really great thought. I think I've changed my mind because of that. And so that is one of the values of kind of what we've been doing, and it gives me an opportunity to speak and recognize that I might be told differently than I understand, and it's going to change my mind, but I don't have a chance to communicate that. And so what's happened now is that my thoughts are put out there as solid right now out there, when based on communication and hearing from other people, that very well may have changed once I've gotten more information. So, bottom line is, if the community feels like we're just not being transparent enough, and that's the real push for this, then we've got nothing to hide. Put it
Absolutely.
out, just do it then. If that's the big motive behind this, is that there's this sense of the school board is not being transparent enough, well, that's not our motive at all. And if this is a reflection of that, then record it, put it out there. We'll just be careful about how we communicate to make sure that what we're saying is understood properly.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you're not being transparent enough. I'm saying we can be more transparent. And as an example, like in my maybe second meeting on the board, and I'd rather not go into the topic, I'll email it out. But there was a topic handled at a work session that was really a major topic, major. A consultant made a presentation, and it hasn't seen the light of day. So, I just think we need to do better. And I'm not saying that we're deceitful or anything. I just think we should try to be as open as we can. Anyways, it's okay. I'm not mad or anything.
I completely, yeah, I completely understand too. And, you know, I really look at this, if it's in a way of taking care of our disabled community members, you know, I want to make sure that they have the opportunity to hear and see what we're doing. I'm kind of thinking about this backwards though. We have some, you know, great men here now that usually don't miss a meeting or a work session that want to take part in hearing what we have to say. And I like to see people really care about their child's education and show up and listen to it so I can see your facial expression if we mention something that you may not like. So the more people I see in the room and how they react in their body language sometimes, that gives me more of a sense of the community. What are they thinking right here? And so to have as many people in here, I know obviously it's not a big room, but to have people present and sign up to speak to us. I know several times I used to, you know, show up before I was on the board and speak about things that really warm my heart. And so I like to hear that and see what people are. And like I said, there's people here that make the effort to be here all the time, and I appreciate that. And so I think, you know, the more people can. Obviously, I know with work schedules and stuff, it's tough. 6 o'clock, but you know, I drove back 5 hours tonight to be here. So, you know, we have to make an effort. Sometimes we have to make an effort, but I'm open for either way.
Okay. All right. Well, I did talk with Mr. Gosh, I keep on calling him Slutsky, but it's Barry Hill. Last week, as a matter of fact, when this was asked to be placed on our agenda this evening, and Garrett, Mr. Barry Hill, our technology director, said that it's really not a big deal as far as technology is concerned, and there's no real expense other than having someone to come and get the system started, shut it down when the work session would be over. So that's something that we can continue to discuss. Can we maybe think about it more and talk about it at next month's meeting and make a
Well,
decision then?
I would like to put it to bed, so I'm not going to bring it up again. In my view, I brought it up and it was turned down, and so that's my you know, unless someone else brings it up, I'm not going to do that again. So
Okay.
I brought it up. It was not received, and it's okay.
All right. Okay then. All right. So we'll move along. There have been a couple of good points raised during the discussion this evening. Perhaps there are folks who would be interested that might be unable to physically attend a public session, such as a work session. And perhaps there are folks in the community who feel like maybe we're less transparent than we could be. So that might be reasons to do it. And yet, on the other side, we do know that at our work sessions, that's a time for our minds to wander and work together here. And I would really be hesitant to do anything that might jeopardize that sense of working together. And sort of anytime someone puts a microphone in front of you, you're kind of automatically on guard. So let's think about it, and perhaps after the first of the year, we might be able to talk about it some more. Let's move on. Board reports. Mr. Frank has a NJROTC report.
Very short because Catherine already covered it, but I think she was.
No, I'm sorry. Nope, I'm good. I'm done. I'm good. Sorry, sorry. My bad.
No, that's fine. No, the only thing I've got after what the captain has already mentioned this evening is next week, Wednesday through Saturday from 9:30 to 6:30. They're hosting a marksmanship match at McDowell. There will be 38 schools, and they're bringing 298 cadets over that period for one of the largest marksmanship matches in the eastern half of the U.S. And as you said earlier, thank goodness for the scoring the targets and that sort of thing. And the other thing was this right here, and I just talked to Dr. Grit, and I didn't even know if I should bring it up, but he wanted me to know that there's still no one on the horizon to relieve him when he retires in January. So we need to make sure that we're in earnestly looking to keep that program at the high level that it's existing at now. And that's not any pressure on you, sir, but I just want to mention.
Mr. Frank, can you repeat the dates of that marksmanship?
Yes, it's next week, Wednesday through Saturday, from 9:30 to 6:30.
We desperately want someone to fill that vacancy for sure. There's no questions about it. We have a long-standing tradition.
Yes, sir.
With that program, 50 years, as a matter of fact. It's their 50th year anniversary as well. So that's something we want to continue. I know Miss Bennett's in the back of the room there, and we'd love to have some candidates for it. So that's where we would ask community members, anybody who's out there listening tonight, if anybody has interest in helping us with that NJROTC program, we need it.
May I ask the board, would it please the board, if on that, during that marksmanship competition, my father-in-law is 90 years old. He's a United States Navy veteran, and he has asked me time and time again if he could come and experience some of that. Would it be okay with the board if I brought him with me to one of those competitions? He would give anything to be able to see that. So.
Well, that was going to be my question: is this something that's open to the public? And if it is, how do we invite the public and make sure that it's, I mean, these are school days. Wednesday is a school day. Thursday, Friday are school days.
Please.
It normally is just the schools that come with their the adults that's there or the captains and chiefs from the other schools. If we have a member of the community, they can reach out and we can be happy to, when they show up, take them over there and let them look at it. But it's not open to the general public.
Okay, so just so that we get that, it is not open to the general public, but if there is somebody who is interested, they can reach out to the high school and ask for like an escorted. Okay. Okay, so just to repeat it for the public's sake is that public can attend if they really want to, but they need to contact the high school. They'll be given a time frame that they could come in. It would be, they'd be escorted during that time frame because we've got safety issues and all that kind of stuff. On top of the fact that it is a very small space, the auxiliary gym, and there'll be a lot of students and their adult representatives and things like that. So there's not a lot of space for the public to be a part of this either. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett.
All right. Other board member reports?
Okay, just to report on Head Start. Just always love the opportunity. Dr. Grit and I were able to sit in on the Head Start Policy Committee today. Dr. Delaney and her staff are continuing to just do amazing things for our early education here in the county. A couple of things I wanted to highlight. I think it was last week, maybe the week before, we had an annual safety fair, working with several cooperating agencies in the county, including, and I was trying to write them down as they were saying, the McDowell County Sheriff's Department, Marion Police Department, Rescue Squad, Marion Fire Department, who brought the Smokehouse, U.S. Forestry Service, who brought Smokey the Bear, and Foothills Food Hub, and the Highway Patrol. Gosh, how can I forget that one? And the Highway Patrol were there for the kids and their families to be able to walk around, get to know these people that are so intricately involved in the community, building relationships with them. Kids were able to go through the smokehouse. That if you're not familiar with that, it simulates what would happen if there's a fire in your house. It talks to the kids about how to get out and working on that. The kids and their families were treated to free ices and they had inflatables there. just again, a wonderful example of how our school system works to build community relationships. And so that was great to hear about. Excited about a partnership that Head Start will be working with. Dedrick Jones out of Nashville, Tennessee is going to be working with Head Start to lead workshops on the Fatherhood Project. This meets a recommendation from the Office of Head Start to boost the positive involvement of male role models in children's lives. And if you ever want to find out about what the real pandemic is in America, talk to any teacher and they'll tell you that it's fatherless homes. And so we're really excited about this possibility. We appreciate the fact that Mr. Jones is coming in to do that. Looking forward to continuing to see some improvement in those role models. And thirdly, definitely wanted to congratulate Dr. Delaney and her staff. If you want to look up the definition of tenacity in the dictionary, you go to the dictionary and you will see Carrie Delaney's face. She has, for the past 3 years, written and applied for a $140,000 grant to have the parking lot at Early Head Start repaved, as well as some much needed security upgrades. While she was recuperating from being sick a couple of weeks ago, she received information that McDowell County Head Start had been awarded a $140,000 grant. And very proud of that. That will include, again, the parking lot at Early Head Start being repaved, some security upgrades also at that facility. Definitely also want to thank Will Thomas at the bus garage for those two areas are connected, and so they already have a plan in place of drop off and pick up staff, everybody, because they won't obviously be able to use that front parking lot. She's also been working with Mr. Oliver and Mr. Trinks and Mr. Berryhill getting quotes to go ahead and get that started, because as always, federal money definitely has deadlines, and this has to be spent by the end of June. So that's my report.
Okay.
I'm glad you mentioned his name too, Dr. Grit. Had several people reach out about the bus training that was coming up in October, and they tried to email Will, and his email address did not work. It kept bouncing back. So the McDowell County website or McDowell County email. So maybe we check that and make sure it is working. Just because I know they were like.
Yeah, we'll certainly check that to make sure we don't have something typo or something.
Yeah, 6 of them replied, so it keeps bouncing back.
Yeah, that's should be an easy fix if we got an issue there. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
If I could just add something in a local resource in the community. Ms. Silver, you mentioned that pre-K is bringing in an outside expert to talk about really the pandemic, an issue of the lack of fathers within, our families. And there is a group here within McDowell County called Men of McDowell, and they are working to address this issue and to be representatives in the community of men who are standing up and working to be those mentors to young people, particularly young men. And so I just wanted to put that out there as a resource within our community, that there is a group of men that are standing up and hoping to address this issue within our community.
And I failed to mention, Ms. Pippo, thank you so much for that. We mentioned Men of McDowell today and how the West Marion Forum has partnered with Head Start to begin working with Men of McDowell. And absolutely, that was definitely my oversight in not mentioning them, because they have already been such an integral part of bringing good, positive role models into the Head Start and some other schools. So thank you for mentioning that. I appreciate it.
All right. Anyone else have anything to report? If not, then we'll move along. Item 13 is the approval of the consent agenda. And you have that included in your board packet and also on the printed agenda this evening. As always, if there is one item for approval that needs special consideration, that item can be removed and voted on and approved or disapproved separately. So are there any items that one might feel would warrant some special attention? If not, then is there a motion offered to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Suttles has made the motion to approve, and Ms. Mumal has seconded. Is there any discussion? If there's not, then all in favor? And Mr. Abernathy, are you favorable? Okay. All right. Okay, so the motion carries. Item 14 is request for a motion to move into closed session to consider those items that are not a public record. Is there a motion that the board move into closed session?
Mr. Chairman, before we move into closed session, might I just make one public comment, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to acknowledge that there is a family within our community that suffered a very, very tragic loss this last week, and they're not specifically enrolled in this 17-year-old young man was not enrolled in the McDowell County schools, but at one point he was, and that child is a dear friend to very many of the students here in the McDowell County school system. The family are dear friends over there at Nebo Crossing School as well as Nebo Crossing Church. And so I just wanted to say that, at least I know that as a board that we want to extend our condolences, and that we grieve with you as a family, we grieve with you as a community, not just the school, but the church family, and as well those of us in the community who know the family. My son played soccer with Caleb, and when I heard the news, it was devastating to me as a parent, and just knowing this child and watching him grow, and the successes that he had in athletics and the family. And I just wanted to say, I'm assuming I can say this on behalf of the McDowell County school system. We are grieving with you, and our hearts and our prayers are extended to you. So, thank you.
Okay. So is there a motion to move into closed session then?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Mumal makes the motion, and Ms. Silver makes the second. Is there any discussion? If not, then all in favor? And Mr. Abernathy, how do you vote? I guess.
Terry, hey,
Hey.
can you? Yeah, I'm for the motion, and I'm going to go offline now.
Okay.
I'm kind of tired, so
All
thanks for
right.
putting up with me.
Get better soon.
Get better soon.
Thank.
Okay. So the motion carries then. All right. So the board is now in closed session. Thank you folks for coming. Be sure and remember that next month's meeting will be the first Monday, not the second